Hi everyone, I'm Natalia and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be, I don't know, in a way, kind of a deeper look into the color blue because it is going to be a deeper reflection on Rose Bay's latest creation, this Blue Bonds, and which I'm sure all of you know how much I've been waiting to get. I'm gonna link it below. And can I just start by saying that if I could dare to rename this deck, I would rename it this Blue Soul. When I got this deck in, and I'll show the deck as I go along in a little bit here, I did not expect to get the reaction I did, to be honest with you. Now, I have a lot of decks. I had a lot of decks come and go through my circulation. And when I get deck in, usually I may have a reaction in a sense of I'm loving the art, I'm vibing with the art, I'm excited to use the deck. It is very seldom that I get a deck, and as I'm looking through the deck, I'm actually getting an emotional reaction. Many of you already know from me sharing in the last video, I am entering my own blue period. And so perhaps that has a lot to do with it. And what I'm picking up from the images in this deck also deeply resonates with what I'm going through. Makes sense why I would be having such an emotional reaction to this deck. But apart from this connection to what I'm going through in my life, I was reflecting on the emotional reaction that I had, and I came to my own realization that there are creators of indie decks who create really beautiful artistic works. And then there are creators who not only create beautiful artistic works, but are also in the midst of that creation. It just so happens, and this is just my assumption, who knows what Rose Bay went through, but it just so happens that when they're also in the midst of that creative endeavor, they're going through some emotional experience or period in their life, or they're creating as an aftermath of having gone through something. And those emotional vibrations, those feeling vibrations of what they have gone through or going through, end up being embedded in the art that they create. We all feel it through music. When artists create music, when they actually are going through a heartache and breakup, we can feel that emotional vibration in those lyrics. Versus somebody maybe even doing rendition of that song, or maybe somebody just writing a heartbreak song without going through it, the resonance is not the same. And this is one of those decks for me. It's a vessel that carries emotional resonance, and I feel it very strongly. This is the cards in this deck feel like blue bonds that are vibrating. They're vibrating with emotions. They're vibrating with feeling. And yes, if this video is going to sound like I'm love bombing Rose Bay and her creation, I am intentionally love bombing Rose Bay and her creation, without a doubt, for sure. You all know me. If I love something, I gush and vocalize it very openly, and I don't shy away from saying how much I love it. When I got it yesterday, I ordered mine. If you're curious, as far as I know, there is Echo and Smooth. I never experienced Echo paper, so I went with Echo paper. Let me just tell you, it is quite an experience in of itself. It feels like velvet butter. The only other deck that feels like this is my first printing box A or B, I don't remember, of Aleister Crowley's Oz deck. This velvet butter finish. It's a card stack. I want every deck in this card stack if I could from now on. It's amazing. So if you're on a fence, I would personally highly recommend Echo over Smooth. So when I got this in yesterday, I was contemplating on this, and in fact, even before I got it yesterday, in anticipation of it, I was thinking about the color blue. And not only in anticipation for the dark, but also because I'm entering the blue period. Blue is my favorite color after black. People think it's red because I wear red lipstick, but actually, apart from red lipstick, it's okay color for me, but blue is my favorite color after black. And I especially like cobalt blue, a deeper shade of blue. There's something about the blue which fascinates me because we attribute so much significance to the word blue. We say that we feel blue when we feel down. We have blue emoji for the heart when our heart is broken or when we're healing. We associate blue with healing, with tranquility, with calmness. We associate blue with depression, which is fascinating to me because a clinical depression is a state of it's such state of energy deficit versus surplus. Anxiety is energy surplus. It's such a state of deficit, and you are feeling so depressed clinically, you can't even do anything. This is why oftentimes clinicians teaching depression will say that as clinician, you don't have to worry about patients who are clinically depressed potentially harming themselves. I'm not going to say the word, we all know what I'm talking about, but harming themselves in a way where it is permanent. Because they don't have energy. To do that requires energy. You have to worry about patients who are clinically depressed when they're starting to get better, because they then have actually energy to act. So when I think about depression and attributing color blue to it, to me it's very inconsistent because depression, as I know it, is a state of energy deficit. And therefore, the color blue doesn't fit because I see color blue as neither passive nor active color. I see color blue as a very introspective, very depth color of calamity. I think about waves of the ocean, calamities that creates a space that is not too turbulent, but not too quiet, for one to be able to sit in. When I think about the color blue, I do think about healing. And I think today more than ever, we all need to learn how to heal. I feel that we live in a world where healing and the meaning and symbolism of healing has been, first of all, I feel a lot of us don't even know how to heal anymore, to heal ourselves. We learn how to avoid healing. We're very good at thinking we're healing, spiritual bypassing other ways, but we're not really doing the real work. And as a result, in my opinion, everything that is going on in the world right now that is so horrific is a byproduct of collective inability to heal. And I think we all need to relearn how to be actively in a state of blueness, how to be blue, how to become best friends with the healing that color blue truly represents. I asked David yesterday when I got this deck, how did I say it? What did I ask him? I said, why do we say blue is depressing color or something like that? And he said, because we turn blue when we die. Interesting. I don't think about it because a lot of us have our veins that are the color blue, right? And we're alive. I also don't think about blue as a state of dying because blue is a bruising, part of the bruise on a way to heal. So it's very interesting. And even if we think about blue as we turn blue when we die, death, as we all know it, especially in regards to tarot, is just another threshold. It's just another step toward a different state. So it's not really a complete ending. I'm going to start showing you a deck as I talk. This card stack making the cards very, because they're like butter, so they're slippery, so hopefully I will not drop it. When I think about color blue, and the reason why I think about healing, true healing, is because I think that the color blue is a state, creates that space that really allows one to sit in their own state of melancholy, which is ongoing state of sadness. Only in sitting and allowing ourselves to sit in a state of our own sadness without rushing to avoid that state or pretend like we are not feeling sad. Only by sitting in it can we start deeper reflection and deeper analysis and deeper understanding of what is hurting and what needs to be healed. I have never approached my personal healing as seriously as I have been this year because, in a way, life circumstances put me in a center of healing. And life circumstances enforced healing into my life. It barged in without introduction because it needed to take place. And I took my healing seriously for the first time and really been allowing myself to sit in the blue. It's interesting because I say I enter my blue period, but in reflection, I have been sitting in my blue period. What does it mean to sit in your blue period? What does it mean to sit in perpetual, not in perpetual? What does it mean to sit in a state of melancholy? It means to be in a place where you are in touch and where you are able to feel ache and pain of your heart. And the sadness, to me, arises out of realizing that what you're aching over, what's causing you pain, is equally something that brings you love or is meaningful to you. That's really hard to sit in with. That's really hard to be in that state. It is very easy to deal with pain when that pain doesn't have an opposite pole of love or tenderness or joy or happiness, where it's just pure pain. When we are in a situation where we or somebody else inflicts pain on us, and there's no opposite pole to that pain, it's just pure, malicious pain, it's easy, very easy for most of us to have boundary go up and to walk away from feelings that pain, that sadness, to sit with it. I keep telling my family, I have two sisters and my mom, because I've been processing obviously a lot of what's going on in my relationship with them, and I keep telling this to everybody. This is like my mantra. I say that it would have been so much easier if my partner hit me, cheated on me, in other words, broke a very strong boundary of no for me. Pain that has no opposite pole on it, then it would be so easy to not sit in sadness. There wouldn't be sadness, there would just be moving on. But it is so hard when the pain that I feel, the pain that we often feel, comes maybe not intentionally, comes also, this is the hardest and the saddest part. I'll close it later. My door just a little bit creaked open. Comes at maybe as a byproduct of your own choices on both ends. So I feel that today, in where we're at, we all have such a hard time sitting with that sadness and allowing us to recognize where it's coming from, and which is the root of the healing. The root of the healing is to acknowledge, to not only be able to sit in it, but to also be able to come to a place where the decision to move out of that sadness and pain, that blueness, is a decision that puts you from one state of being blue into another state of being blue. In fact, I think as humans, we're probably always in a state of blue, but we just don't want to acknowledge it. Or maybe we don't want to admit it to ourselves. I think a lot of amazing poets and artists, creators, musicians, very acutely aware of their ongoing state of blueness that is to be human being. And they have the capacity of not only sitting in it, but transmuting it into works of art so that they can heal from one state of blue into another state of the blue. What if, this has just occurred to me as I'm talking to all of you, what if the whole point of life, well, one point, is to learn how to be in a blue state? What if it is to become blue, to be blue, to know how to honor blue? It's such an interesting color to me, color blue, because undeniably when we look at color blue, it elicits a feeling. I don't know about you, for me, this is not a feeling of action. That's to me color red, color yellow, which is interesting. I associate blue with healing, and oftentimes I associate green with healing. But green is not healing to me. Green is growth. That's the growth that follows after being able to sit in the healing period of blue. There is, this is a CD because I got rid of my DVD. This is how much I love this movie, that I have a CD, because the music in this film is, in my opinion, is amazing. This is the one of Khrushchev Kozlovsky trilogy, Troy Scholars. There's blue, white, and red. All very interesting. But this one, when I watched it a long time ago, I watched it in my 20s, had such an impact on me. I've seen this movie 1,000 times. If somebody asks me what movie summarizes who you are as a person, it would be Blue. This is an amazing movie if you haven't seen it. It's a movie about grief and loss. And above all, it's a movie about healing. And the way the director uses the color blue in juxtaposition with music throughout the film tells a story in of itself. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything more about that because it's such a personal personal way, but I highly, if you're going to get this deck, and if you want to get a little bit more into state of blue, watch that movie. If you want to get a little bit more in a state of blue, which I encourage you, I think all of us, I think today the world is screaming for us to be blue. And I think a lot of us are not listening. I think a lot of us have such a hard time we have such a existential internal fear of what we might learn if we are in a state of blue. So many of us are so eager to do shadow work and talk about shadow work, especially in tarot world. I'm at fault. I created a shadow work tarot course. We go from state of, this awareness to complete state of unawareness. And we presume that doing shadow work, we're healing. Shadow work doesn't heal wounds. Shadow work brings wounds to the surface. It also brings gold to the surface. It also brings amazing parts of your unconscious that you're not aware of to the surface, so that you can integrate and grow. Shadow work is about individuation and growth first and foremost, not healing work. It can be healing work, but I feel like calling shadow work as just healing work is very unfair, because shadow work is illumination work. And it's about becoming a whole person. If people have really deep traumas, that's not shadow work, that's healing work. And in today's world, we all have traumas. We all have unhealed wounds. I feel like when I look at people, I see everybody bandaged up. I see everybody bandaged up and not in a good way. I see them bandaged up, and yet the blood is oozing. The infections and the pus is oozing. Things are not mended. Things are not getting better. Things are not getting healed. This is pretty much what we can go on and talk about the health industry, especially in the United States, and how nobody ever heals anybody. Everybody just bandages everybody up with medication and everything else. So we all need to be encouraged. I would say encouraged to do less shadow work, to do more blue work at this point where we're at as a collective, I think, and to sit more in the depths of blueness, and to allow ourselves to be blue. How often have we felt to be in a state of blue? And how many of you, and I know this is true for myself, how many of you were so quick to immediately tell yourself, you gotta snap out of the state, you gotta get out of the state, you gotta get happy, you gotta, in this toxic positivity. My goodness, I mean, really, we need to get over that. That's not life. That's not life. I think the life is a state of blue, not a state of ongoing happiness and joy. I was looking around home for books I have on blue, because I was trying to see what have I unconsciously been collecting in my book library, and there was a Joan Didion book on blue nights, which I have read. A beautiful book about her daughter's death, and Joan looking back at motherhood and death and memory. And she calls it blue nights because she's sitting in that space. She knows how to be in the state of being blue. We get bruised up. We're so eager to cover up our bruises. We're so quick to put a band-aid on it instead of sitting in that healing process. Allow it to even take place. So I was looking around and I was so surprised I found this. I'm a huge fan of James Hillman. I was very fortunate to see him lecturer at the Pacifica Graduate Institute before he passed away. I love his writing. I love his approach toward archetypal psychology, and him bringing soul, the meaning of soul back into psychology. I have all of his books, and I can't believe I have this book and I never read it. Blue Fire. And I don't even know what this book is about. But what I did is I started looking up on this is kind of like an anthology on psychology and soul. But this is what struck me about that I found looking into this, is that the blue fire, the color blue itself, rather than a literal fire, obviously he means color blue, not the fire itself, is symbolic. To James Hillman, it represents the transit between black and white, suggesting a space of reflection, pondering, and meditation. Blue signifies a deepening of the idea of reflection, moving beyond simple mirroring to deeper consideration and introspection. It also associated with the idea of accepting one's ailments and imperfections as part of the self, rather than striving for an idealized, unattainable normalcy. So if you think about it from this point of view, you can see how shadow work is black. Full awareness and integration is white. So if we're constantly jumping between the state of white and then state of shadow work, and whatever comes up on shadow work never goes through the transitory period of blue that is in between those two states, nothing ever gets done. You may do all the shadow work you want, and you can bring up all that stuff to the surface, but if you don't allow that to sit in a state of blue, and like he says, allow the space of reflection, pondering, and meditation, so all of this can deepen into reflection, moving beyond simple mirroring to a deeper consideration and introspection, nothing happens. This is a missing piece in our society and our culture, and in all of us, including myself. So I would recommend each one of you to get a copy of Blue Bones. I would highly recommend each one of you to really think on the concept of blue and the meaning of blue and the meaning of the space, sitting in the space, and how to bring more of blueness into your life, how to allow yourself to be blue on purpose longer versus avoiding or running away or putting a band-aid on it. So I'm going to leave you all with that. Hopefully this is well, it was, let me just put it this way, it was helpful to me to self-reflect. It put certain pieces back, just making this video. So if Roseby, if you're watching, thank you. And having artists in this world who are bringing attention, Genesis, bringing attention to what is so badly needed. Not people on social media or on their YouTube channels or everywhere else talking about what they're doing to help what's going on with the wars, what they're doing to change the world, how they're taking political stance, or on social media. All of that is, to me, all of that is just deflection from inner work. It's an aim to tell the world, look at me, I'm good, I'm doing work, look at me, I'm doing, this activism or whatever. But if you're really truly doing work, you're doing it in silence. And you're staying in a state of blue. And so artists who bring our attention to a need to be in a state of blue are the artists who are not only giving us tools to heal, but also actively themselves sitting in a state of blue. And they're helping the world turn blue because that's exactly what needs to happen. And by being blue, they're healing us and they're healing the rest of the world. So share your thoughts if you have this deck. If you're going to get this deck, share your thoughts on color blue. Share your thoughts on what else you want to recommend in color blue. I love reading all of your comments. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.